Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the PeopleSoft ERP update and roadmap. I'm Shar Jorgensen. I will be presenting along with the strategy and development team and a special guest from our sponsor, MyPro. MyPro Consulting is sponsoring our session today. We thank them very much for their support at this conference, and they've been a staunch supporter of us and all of our efforts, and really are always the first to lend their sponsorship, especially to our three-day CAB meeting. I'd like to point out that MyPro was the original sponsor of Reconnect many years ago. If you were a PeopleSoft customer, it was the very first Reconnect conference in Chicago, and since then they've been a fabulous partner for us. We rely on them for many things, especially feedback of what they've done with our customers. We look to them for helping our customers do implementations, upgrades. They are really on the ball with our new functionality as we release it, like the new Lease Administration, fluid and improving with the user experience, merging organizations into a single PeopleSoft instance, customers that want to go off premise onto the cloud infrastructure, and they do a great consulting. As you can see, they've done across a lot of implementations, and certainly you should try to make some of their sessions that they have coming up over the next week, and of course visit them in the virtual expo booth during time. I have to talk safe harbor because, of course, we are going to be talking about futures, and I want to make sure that everyone understands that what you see today might not necessarily be what you get eventually. One of the things that I'm going to post after the session is to keep this presentation down to a manageable a number of slides. I wanted to provide as much content as I could, but I didn't want to include it in the main slide deck. So there's going to be a second document that I'll be posting that will be a PDF containing live hyperlinks to additional screenshots, examples, and web pages. So it will if there is a video feature overview for one of our past GA features, you'll see the hyperlink in the document that clicking on it will take you right to PeopleSoft YouTube channel. If the team had provided me with additional information with screenshots about either something that's GA or some ideas of something that's coming, I'll include those in the document as well. So look for that in addition to this presentation. I wanted to give you an idea of the team, who are all contributors to the contents here. And over the last 20 months, we've had a lot of Zoom conferences, and you may be or may not have met these folks on our strategy team in person at conferences or during the CAB meeting. So I wanted to introduce them. They all contributed content. We have also with us our Vice President of Development, Sandy, and of course our partner from MyPro, Jeff. And these are the folks that you'll find on the strategy team. Unfortunately, Amira won't be able to make it this week. She had some things come up, personal things, so she won't be here. But she's here in spirit, and she normally would be presenting this session, but we're all pitching in to take over for her. I wanted to make a mention of the ERP product launches and team panel discussion. These are the times where you would have access to the team to ask your questions, to bring issues that you might have. If you want to know more information about anything in these areas, please come find your appropriate time in your time zone, and please drop into the lounge. We'll be staffed with folks from strategy and development for you to ask your questions, just give a chat. So please feel free to visit. On the last day, on Thursday, we'll be having a panel of strategy and development folks for you to come and get your specific questions answered. When we were putting together this presentation, we thought about the things that were most important to organizations. So we divided it up into 3 areas. I just picked a few key items that may be topmost in the organization's mind as they wonder what the future may hold and how their PeopleSoft investment will hold up over the next few years. The most fun for us is working on what your users want. And that's the section where we'll be talking about the latest updates, the things that we've released in the last 6 months, plus the things that we have on our roadmap. And then the topic that we really have to put our strategy visionary hats on for, and that's what the market is looking for, things that we need to do to our product to remain relevant. So what do we think your organization wants? We think that your organization, and Paco mentioned this in his opening address, is confidence in PeopleSoft's ongoing support. And also that we are continuing to invest in your products, that we are reacting when we hear about them to legislative and regulatory changes so that you remain current and you're adhering to the new regulations, legislative information that affects your products. Also that we provide tools for you, especially actionable analytics, so that you can look at them and decide whether or not you need to make some business process improvements. And that could be anything from training your individuals because they constantly are not adhering to expense report policy, to the fact that there's a lot of leakage in your procurement contracts where people are buying things that aren't on contracts. So provide you with the information that you could do some changes to your business processes and make some improvements there. And of course, user satisfaction. So Paco went over this in pretty good detail in his opening address, and talks about our rolling 10 years of support, the support through at least 2032. And contrary to the rumors that you might hear or blogs that might come out, there is life in PeopleSoft products. We still will be supporting the PeopleSoft products. And if there's any question about what kinds of things we're putting into the PeopleSoft products, we are publishing what we call the planned features and enhancement list. And this is a page where you can go out if you have any doubts about what kinds of features are coming out in the next 12 to 18 months and see for all applications and technologies, so not only financials and supply chain, but for HCM, for people tools, campus, all the things that are going to be done with the products in the next 12 and 18 months. And this is a page that really kind of changes on a pretty regular basis. I have to say that we do our roadmap reviews every 6 months. So we gather things from the idea space, things that we hear at conferences, and things that might come up legislatively that we need to react to, and things that People Tools is coming out with. And we create a roadmap looking forward for 6 releases and 6 images, and craft a roadmap that we take before Paco and Alex and Rebecca and the other in the development team, and show them what we have plans for and how we're going to spend our resources. So it's really kind of a balancing act of reacting to and reacting in a timely way to things that we hear from you as customers, things that we hear legislatively, and things that will make us more relevant, and things that we need to think about for emerging technology and strategic investment. So check this, bookmark it, and check it on a regular basis. One of the things that is very important to us and an integral part of our roadmap is the reaction to legislative and regulatory changes. So things like the National Automated Clearinghouse Association data masking requirements, where a piece of sensitive information such as bank accounts needs to be masked And we carry that information in our system. So we realize that we need to make a concerted effort to mask those, to make it available only to the people that really need to see it, only at the roles in the organization that really need to see it. So that's an ongoing effort that we have in process right now. The federal government has some G-invoicing changes that affect our payables and purchase order products. So we are working on that solution. So if you're a federal customer, know that it's a new feature and new changes, pretty extensive changes to AP and PO for intergovernment transactions. And it was an initiative given to us by the US Department of Treasury. We just found out, the AP team just found out that there's ongoing, there's some new 1099 changes from the IRS, so they'll be reacting to that. And in the appendix document I'll provide are the 3 bug numbers that they have created to support the new change. So you can click on those, go to the MOS page and see the 3 bugs that have to do with this new 1099 change that they're making. We have ongoing work on country-specific invoicing requirements, especially the electronic format. So as soon as a country changes something, we're on top of it as best we can to make sure that those country-specific invoicing requirements and changes are in place for our global customers to use. One of the things that we did was Brexit for VAT. So due to the exit of the United Kingdom from the EU, the European Union, we developed changes to the VAT treatment and tax logic for the supply of goods and services. So we have a write-up about that, so you can go and check those out, and that was released in Hum 40. And then another federal government change. The federal government is, for the system of award management, is no longer using or replacing the existing Dun & Bradstreet identifier with a new unique entity identifier. And we made those changes in our system to react to that. So again, part of our, our roadmap does include reacting to these legislative and regulatory changes. Funny, but over the years, if you started out with us as a PeopleSoft customer, you realize that in the very early days, when asked for a report, we would shy away from those things and say that we were not providing a lot of out-of-the-box reportings, preferring to concentrate on building out the foundation and transactional features, because our response was, we'll never be able to get it right for everybody. However, with the reporting tools we had, such as SQR and Crystal, we felt like we were kind of limited on what we could provide, especially to address the unique reporting needs of an organization. But as our tools evolved and provided us with more powerful native reporting tools like the pivot grids and then fluid pivot grids, it became really easier for us to do some basic out-of-the-box functionality that our customers could take really personalized to their specific needs. So over the years, we've leveraged the power of the pivot grids and even made it easier for a non-IT person to leverage simplified analytics for their reporting needs. And that was a really kind of a fun thing. Definitely, I wasn't a report writer, but did have some really fun times with the simplified analytics and getting those, getting my own report and being able to add it to my homepage. So now with Kibana, we've extended that power with Kibana Analytics, and we're now more eager to provide useful visualizations, out-of-the-box visualizations that you can now personalize for your own use. So we have released quite a few actionable analytics for business process improvement. And what we try to do when we're deciding what kind of analytics to provide, especially with Kibana, are things around what an executive, a manager, or employee might ask. So ask it a question. What kind of question do I want answered. And along with that question, we'll see if there's an answer we can provide with the analytics, which might also suggest a possible remediation, change in policy, or maybe even a change in business process. So over the last year or so, starting with PUM 36, we've provided many out-of-the-box Kibana dashboards in FSCM that attempt to answer a myriad of questions in the finance area, in the supply chain area, and certainly in the ESA and ALM area. For instance, in the expense policy travel violations dashboard, it reports which travelers are not adhering to company travel policy and maybe why. The remediation action could be disciplinary or perhaps a change in travel policy to accommodate change in travel habits. Some of the things that we have on the roadmap, some planned ones, if you don't see something in these two lists, are planned visualization. And some of them, we're working on now. Some of them will come in the future. And, of course, we would like some feedback from customers as to what kinds of visualization would be useful for the organization. And as you can see, they're spread out over finance, assets, ESA for inventory, for procurement. So these are the ones that are on our roadmap that we will be releasing over the next few images. And of course, we want you to grow your own analytics. And what we mean by this is the things that we provide are really almost examples for you to take and expand on, creating your own pivot grids, using Elasticsearch indexes to create your own Kibana visualizations. Use your questions to find your answers. We haven't thought of every single question an organization might ask. And certainly we don't have all the answers. But we thought that if we provided a starting point, it could help you with your analytics journey. So take our analytics and transform them to your organization. This is the one I think that the team has the most fun with, and that's user satisfaction. I think this is one of the most important things to keep abreast of and ensure that you and, of course, us are thinking about keeping your user community engaged and secure in that you're providing them with tools and capabilities that adjust to things that change. And of course, we've seen a lot of change in the way people have had to work, what with the pandemic and having to, a lot of us work from home as opposed to going into the office. So providing the capabilities to do that, making them making it easier for them to do their jobs remotely with any device they may have. This may mean allowing them access to approval and maybe requisitions via their phones or tablets. It could mean providing them with the capability to use the digital assistant, like what formerly known as the chatbot, find what they're looking for in the system, and perhaps reducing clicks to get to the information. And it could also mean doing selective adoption on a new feature that can make a huge difference in their everyday lives. And this is just a quote that my pro provided us that indicates that Steve Coleman, our customer, switched to the Fluid platform for their corporate and affiliates, and it made a huge impact, especially the UI for their users. So, what your users? Oh, Bob, I should ask at the end. Were there any questions that came up in your?
No questions at this time.
Great, thank you. This is the section I think that we have the most fun with, and thinking about what your users want. And really, realistically, users are not only employees, and that's how we used to think about users in the past, but now your users are also suppliers and customers, and they'll be accessing your system. And they have a totally different mindset because they are not familiar with the PeopleSoft product. So we really have to design differently for those external users. So we want to make those transactions that they're going to be accessing simple, intuitive, effective, efficient, and you'd be surprised that sometimes very, very small changes make a huge impact. What we also like to do, and it's great that we update our roadmap every 6 months, is that we mine the idea space for hot topics. And things can really, really change in the idea space area, especially after a conference. So we go out and we run a report that pulls in all the ideas on the idea space by product area. We sort it by the number of votes, and then we distill that report further to finding the unique organizations that voted for something. So if somebody from an organization voted, if 5 people voted on the same idea, their domain is the same. So we distill that out and count it, as one voice. So it still is very impactful. So we mine the idea space for the hot topics and try to incorporate those to the every 6-month roadmap that we're creating. And really, this could change things. The things that we might have had on our roadmap 6 months ago, after we've gone to conferences, there might be some lukewarm reception to that. It might not be of interest to people like we thought it would. And we might end up replacing it with something on the idea space that may be a little bit hotter and more important. We also rely on CAB member feedback for our cross-industry requirements and also focus group feedback. And we really love focus groups in that it gives us a really great perspective on different industries, outside of our CAB and certainly outside of our internal thinking. And really what we, at the end of the day, what we want to do for your users is make their job easier. This is an interesting thing I wanted to slide in here because these were comments that came through our chat in our last conference back in April. And it's the little things and what users said during some of the presentation when we introduced the navigation and the new menu items, that breadcrumbs were coming back. So breadcrumbs were replaced a couple of PeopleSoft images ago. And now we have breadcrumbs back. And the comments that came through, and this is just one of about 5 or 6, people were excited about breadcrumbs. And someone said, did I just hear that breadcrumbs are coming back? Users will be very pleased. So small thing that we didn't think was that impactful, but is making a huge difference in the lives of the user. Then people are commenting on some of the emerging tech that we're building into our products, about the supplier-facing chatbots, so that suppliers might have an easier time navigating the portal. And of course, just hearing that they're going to be updates to a module that they own was exciting for them. So keeping all that in mind, I'd like to go over the SRM SCM update. Then we'll go to financials and finally ESA ALM. And what I asked the team to do was to come up with the last couple of images worth of deliverables, and then pick 5 their most favorite upcoming features and enhancements that they were working on that really would address that what the users want theme that we have. So for purchasing, we had the buyer-facing acknowledgements in PUM 37, Kibana dashboards, which will be in the appendix. We also have a video feature overview for that. Some federal enhancements that we're working on. And most importantly, I think the things that we are doing really kind of span across products. So the integration is pretty important to us, that we integrate smoothly with other products. This is one of the things that came out of the idea space for the inspection process to allow inspectors to enter and review asset details. This was kind of an interesting one because the receivers could do it, but the inspectors couldn't. So this one was, a high vote getter for asset-intensive organizations, but a small change that made people's life easier. We also include some of the things that supplier self-service, incorporating steps into the approval process when suppliers make changes to their profile using supplier change request, inserting a step to allow editors to review, update, and add information prior to submitting change requests for approval. And that might be, suppose the supplier put in a name change and they change it to LTD, perhaps, for limited. And we, as an organization, want it spelled out to LIMITED, limited. We can make that edit and then send it off for approval, and that happened in 38. Also, there are a set of approvals that are associated to the supplier change request, user registration, supplier registration, bidder registration, and we implemented the delegation framework that would allow somebody who's in the approval chain to delegate their approvals for a certain number of days or a certain amount of time in case they're going on an extended leave. Perhaps they might be going on family leave. So they are going to be not able to do the approval, so they delegate it for a month or 2 months to someone else in the organization. So all of those approvals are able to be delegated through the delegation framework. We enhanced the procurement card. Some organizations heavily use procurement card, and we enhanced the import process to accommodate the level 3 transaction data, which has a lot more data in the upload than we ever had before. And then we added the supplier skill to the supplier digital assistant on the public supplier portal. And granted, this is not something that appeared on the idea space to say, we need an easy way for our guest users on the supplier portal to be able to navigate the system. This was something that we felt was important because those users that are landing on your supplier portal as guest users really don't know the PeopleSoft interaction. They don't know the concept of tiles. They don't know the concept of how to navigate. So we wanted to really make it much easier when that guest user lands on the homepage to be able to use Picasso, and that's our supplier digital assistant, formerly known as the chatbot, to just in a simple conversation, rather than having to know that I need to drill down on each of these tiles, can I just ask it a question and have it give me the answer? So, the user can come in and say, I don't know if I even belong here. Are there any opportunities to sell laptops and computers, which is what I do? And Picasso can come back, go look up the answer to the question and tell the user, I found 2 opportunities that you can bid on, and here they are. So the user can scroll through and see if there's anything of interest to them that they might want to bid on. And then, decides that maybe they are going to work with this organization. How do I do business with you? And the Picasso could come back and say, you should complete the user registration, gives them a link to the user registration, or if you have any questions, go to our FAQ page, and it navigates them to the FAQ page. So this is that external user that doesn't necessarily have to know PeopleSoft to be able to do what they need to do within the portal. So when they click on the user registration, it takes them to the registration page where they can see what they need to do and come back to the chat conversation. And once they're done, all they need to do is end it by either closing out the conversation or typing in something that says thanks, thank you, and Picasso responds with an appropriate closing message. And this is a quote from one of our customers at Evergy, and the supplier portal, opening up their portal to the suppliers, for their procure-to-pay process, really, especially with the PO acknowledgements and self-service, has seen an increase in the number of touchless transactions, meaning their internal people don't have to necessarily service those customers or those suppliers that need information. The 5 things that that Bob chose for his top 5 things are things that are a combination of idea space and really kind of helping the organization with things like the Kibana visualization. So we have a good mix of strategic and tactical enhancements coming up for purchasing and strategic sourcing. The fluid bidder response, Bob collected a lot of feedback from our CAB and from the idea space that the bidder response pages weren't as user-friendly as they possibly could be. So there was a big effort to redo this with a better user interface that we're going to show you in just a few minutes. Also, be able to use a load utility for purchase order contracts, and creating and maintaining is a very manual task, especially for procurement contracts have hundreds of rows. So the plan is to enhance that process to provide a load utility that'll automatically create or update existing procurement contracts. And the plan is to provide capability to do mass updates using various criteria. And Bob will have a focus group to figure out what that criteria would be. By leveraging this new plan capability, the organization will be able to manage those procurement contracts efficiently, accurately, in a more hands-off process, and again, making people's jobs a little bit easier. Extending, PO purchasing had some really nice Kibana visualizations initially that they put out. And the feedback that we've been getting from customers is that more are needed. And one of the ones that the team wanted to provide was different ways of slicing and dicing PO versus non-PO spend. Also, again, to make lives easier, PO mass changes. When buyers change roles or leave the organization, and it happens, life happens, the purchase orders that are still in flight may need to be updated with the person taking over them. And depending on the change order template, this might initiate a change order or require a dispatch to the supplier. And this might cause confusion or double shipment. So the team plans to enhance the buyer mass change functionality to make updates, mass updates of a buyer on a purchase order, replace the old one with a new one that skips the need to dispatch and create change requests. And then a big one, especially for strategic sourcing, is to upload multiple attachments in one click. In the past, if your bidding event had the need for multiple attachments, you had to do them one at a time. You would open up your file, your folder, attach, save it, attach, save it, attach, save it. Well, this will allow you to upload multiple attachments at one time. And while it seems like a small thing, it's just really something that will make people's lives easier, I believe. So this is the fluid bidder response. And we wanted to show that some of the things that we're doing is really kind of making it easier for that guest user who is not familiar with PeopleSoft to be able to easily create a response to a bidding event. So from the public homepage, they would click on the tile, get to the bidding event, and this user experience was designed for the non-PeopleSoft user. Once they're on the bidding event, or they open the bidding event, we had some metrics up at the top, and also a guide to show them where they were in the process. So if we wanted to make it a little bit more obvious as to what was going on with their response, to provide some metrics up at the top to show how far they were in the process of responding, a train stop activity guide, and visualizations to identify required or pending tasks. So the bidding event itself was simplified to the point where a user can tell exactly where they are in the preparation of that bidding process. We also wanted to give them multiple sort and filter options so they can narrow down the unit of work and they won't be so overwhelmed with options. So we have the ability to filter how they want the bid to be presented, the event. And the modern layout improves the data entry. So they just need to fill in a few fields if they elect to have an option to default the requested quantity into the field. They don't even have to touch it. And we indicate whether or not there are comments and attachments they need to pay attention to. We have some enhanced error handling, meaning we won't wait till the end where they go to submit to tell them all the mistakes that they've made or all the errors that we found. They'll be able to do that as they move along in the process. So we enhance the error handling. People can make the changes as they go along and not have to wait to the end and go back. And we've made the messaging about the errors much more clear and much more appropriate to the page that they're on. And now for another voice, I'm going to turn it over to Steve and let him talk about his e-procurement strategic objectives. But first I'll check with Bob. Are there any questions or comments that came in through the chat?
A lot of comments, just mainly positive comments on what we've delivered and what's coming up.
Thank you.
There is one question out there from Randy Henry. This is anyone else reaching out to the community to see if there's anyone else that's having a similar issue. We'll probably have to take that one offline, Randy, to just figure out more specifics to that.
Yeah, why don't you bring it to our open forum when we have back there.
And we have one question that just came in with bidder response. Is that limited to bidders or suppliers responding? Not sure, Wendy, what is meant by that on the bidder response. It will be open for all, either a bidder or supplier. So it's the external facing piece to that component. If that's not the case, enter in some more, and that will be.
Should I clarify that the new bidder response pages are for any bidding event, both public and invited?
Oh, yes.
So on both the portals, the guest portal as well as the credentialed user portal, you'll see that new UE for bidder response.
Okay, a couple more have come in, and thanks, Randy, for bringing this up. There was a question on 1099. There's some changes that are be coming out. I think Whoopi responded to that saying they just received those new requirements and will be working with those. What they are in particular, I have no idea, but just know that we have received the requirements for those changes and that will be provided in time.
Okay.
The other question, will there be more work done on P cards? Carol, that is a great question. I'm not sure which piece, or we've done a lot of P card enhancements over the last 4 images. And so at this time, I don't have anything new to be added to P cards, but be open to know what you're looking for. Will it show the bidder when they have uploaded an attachment? Yes, you'll see when they select or they upload the attachments, you'll have a counter to indicate how many attachments were then added. Any fluid interface or better display for supplier portal invoice, PO, and account balance data.
Why don't why don't we table that, because we're kind of hitting an
Yeah.
hour. We have
Okay.
a lot more. If you can come to the PeopleSoft Lounge, we can show you a sneak peek at what we have planned for our next digital assistant for the credentialed user to show
Okay. And
some of the invoicing stuff.
I'll ask the team also if you can help just reply to any of these questions that come in. I've been trying to keep up with some of these just during the chat itself. So
yeah,
we
there's
don't get
also.
Yeah.
Sorry, Bob. Please continue. Yeah.
Okay. I think we're caught up for now. Let me see if I can respond to some of these otherwise offline.
Yeah, it just for some of those things, just say visit us in the lounge, one of the lounges, and we can certainly show you some of the changes if we don't cover them here. We have a lot of products to cover and not very much time. So I'm going to keep going. And Steve.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
All right, great. Okay, so I'm going to cover some of the e-procurement functionality, and we do have a couple of specific sessions that I'll refer to during the session today, where we're going to cover things in more detail. So in terms of strategic objectives for e-procurement, obviously we have the classic to fluid features, and hold any questions on D-support, and we'll discuss that tomorrow in the classic to fluid session. So we've got that, then we've got enhancing the user experience, very important for e-procurement to always kind of stay up with the later consumer kind of web experience, as pretty much most requesters kind of really like to have whatever the consumer experience they have in their business experience as well. So always important for us to keep up with that. And then also invest in the latest technologies where it adds value, and with a highlight there on where it adds value. So we're not just going to, deliver a whole bunch of technologies that really have no business value for you guys, but when we deliver those technologies, and again, I will talk about this in another session, which is on Wednesday, it's going to be something that makes sense. So that if it's machine learning, it's going to be for things like recommendations and similar items, but we can talk more about that on Wednesday. And then finally, as Shar was alluding to, basically collaborating with the customers on the tactical and strategic enhancements. That is the singular most important thing, is for us to deliver what you guys are looking for, whether that's through CAB, focus group, idea space, etc. Okay, go on, Shar. Okay, so on the classic to fluid stuff, we just delivered in Pi 41 pre-encumbrance budget status link. So you'll be able to, so if you come back with a budget status of, say, error, you'll now be able to click on that link and then go off and see what the error was. Express entry, I know a lot of you guys were waiting for that one, in terms of that's something that you really use now in Classic. So that's your ad hoc entry. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then these are the 3 planned enhancements that we are currently working on that will essentially complete the Classic to Fluid uptake. So those would be express forms, work order integration is the first one. That's where from the work order, if you need material, you can link to a requisition, or from a requisition, you can link back to the work order. Essentially, you're creating a link using the pegging functionality. I'll talk a little bit more about that in this session. Express forms, for those of you who are using the forms functionality in e-procurement, we will deliver express forms. It will be very similar in the setup that you have today in Classic. We'll also allow you to copy from your Classic express forms into the Fluid express forms. So that's something that we are planning to deliver. And then the last one really is to try and make it's things like the create receipt, the manage receipts and manage returns. We're going to call it my receipts, my returns, but essentially we're just going to make that whole process, first of all, fluidize it. Second of all, make it much more user friendly. We did have a lot of UX issues with, say, things like desktop receiving and return to vendor. And again, this is the e-procurement version of those, which are typically simpler than the purchasing version of them. But what we're going to try and do there is make that a lot more user friendly for you guys. All right. In terms of the user experience, latest technology stuff, requester inquiry skill and the digital assistant, we enhanced the skill. And I'm sure, as you'll see, and I think I'll be talking, I'll talk about this on Wednesday and do a little demo of the requester inquiry one. That's basically digital assistant is one interface where you can enter your questions, and that has multiple skills in it. So I'll give you guys a demo of that. I'm sure there's plenty of sessions on that this week. So that's really powerful. Cart and checkout. So one of the big things that we got from you guys was, hey, wait a minute, the fluid e-procurement is not as efficient as classic e-procurement. It takes more clicks, etc., etc. So I'm going to share with you guys on Wednesday a lot of the changes that we're making there, especially top priority is to do with how we access the cart, going straight to checkout instead of forcing people through the cart, and then the checkout UX itself so that it's more efficient or as efficient as the current classic one. So we'll talk about that Wednesday. Real-time indexing. So the idea here is that instead of you having to run an incremental update, batch update, so that when you do your search, you see the latest information, the latest master data information. You're going to be able to do that real time. I think we're probably going to talk about that one. I think we're going to talk about that one tomorrow, as Tish Gorman is going to be doing a technical session, and I'm going to be doing the functional side of it, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But this is going to be a big benefit. So as you're making changes, then real time, those changes will be visible in your search. Search usability improvements, talk about that in a minute. Amazon-like landing page. What we want to do here is we want to have a much nicer initial page. So if you're coming in as, let's say, a casual user, then we want to make that kind of like an Amazon-like page with configurable sections like top categories, recent requisitions, promotions, etc. And then also things like recommendations, and that's where some of the machine learning comes in. But kind of more like a kind of totally configurable landing page for your users to come into. And I think that that's typically what they expect to see more with a kind of shopping, from a shopping experience. So we're going to do that. And we'll talk about that one more on Wednesday. And then some of the things that we've already delivered, and some of these are tactical, by which we mean smaller in size. And as Shara was saying, sometimes that can be just as important as some of the larger ones we do. Order sheets, I'll talk about that in a second. We delivered that in 39. The bypass combo edit check on requisition save. So this is one that a number of customers have had. The idea here is that maybe you got a 25 line order, you click on save, and then there's you get in a combo edit check on a couple of the lines. So you're kind of stuck. You don't yet know what that accounting information should be. We're going to provide the option for you to bypass that combo edit check on the save, so that you can save the requisition, carry on with your work, and then it will do the combo edit check only when you do the submit. So that's an example, probably more of a tactical one, but it adds a lot of value. The search functional improvements, I'll talk about a little bit later, but that's some of the areas around. If you guys have ever seen or used in the marketplace, you'll see that they have some functionality. I guess it's originally called guided buying, but it's kind of subtly guiding your users based on algorithms that you set up behind the scenes. I want to push contract items to the top. I want to push certain types of suppliers to the top. So those are some of the things that we are planning to deliver. I'll talk about that in a bit too. And then lastly, another strategic enhancement was requisition type. So this is something that pretty much went across the board. It's something right now that customers are mainly customizing. And what the idea behind requisition type is that when you enter a requisition or you go into the requisition, you'll be able to select a specific type. That might be at the header or the line level, still figuring it out. But it will support things like bill only, bill and replace. For those ones, you actually need to be able to enter a serial and or lot expiration information, and things like capital acquisition. You need to be able to enter asset information. So for each of those different types, it's going to take you through a flow that makes sense. So it's going to slightly change the flow so that you need to enter certain information. And as part of that requisition flow, you have to capture that information before you can complete the requisition. So again, it's a way of driving the flow and the types of fields and what are mandatory fields that you need to enter based on that requisition type. Okay, Sharon, next slide. So just like Shar was showing the digital assistant, I'm going to show you a demo of this on Wednesday, in our Wednesday session. Digital assistant, it provides that one entry point. We also enhanced it to do a number of different things. So I can now do requests on behalf of, so I can say, show me the monitor I entered for John Smith, or show me, and then date constraints, show me the monitor I entered last week. You can inquire on different statuses. You can also launch into the relevant transactions like approvals or stock request inquiry from the digital assistant itself to get more information. So a lot of pretty cool changes. And again, I'll give you guys a demo of that on the Wednesday session. Okay, order sheets. This one's an interesting one. One of the challenges, and it might be in some of the more complex setups and some of the different industries, but certainly one of the challenges that we're finding with requesters is requester errors. Because when a requester makes a mistake, then that has to go to the approver. Approver either has to edit that requisition or push it back, and so there's a time, there's efficiency, there's time all involved with that. What the order sheet does is enables you, an admin person would be able to set up an order sheet ahead of time, and then set up a list of items on that order sheet. But what they'd be able to do is they would be able to associate supplier, unit of measure, shipping, and especially accounting information. What they would then do is authorize that order sheet that they had set up to specific requesters. What that means is when the requester comes in, instead of them having to go in and actually override the accounting information, maybe they make a mistake, they charge it to the wrong department, etc., all that information is going to be predefined so that when the requester comes in, all they have to do is select the correct item from the correct order sheet, and then all of that shipping and accounting information would be brought forward. So the whole concept behind this is that by the administrator doing that in advance, it reduces requester errors and then increases the efficiency of the requisition flow. So that is order sheets. Express, so this used to be called Express Item Entry for Fluid, and we have just delivered this in 41. It's called Express Entry because technically you can enter item and description only items or special request items, which do not have an item number. This is your simple, fast ad hoc entry. But what we've done is, in talking to customers, we recognized there were a couple of customizations that people made. The first customization was that a lot of times they didn't want special requests to be entered as part of Express Entry. They wanted the requesters to go to the special request specific entry page. So that's so if you look at the menu on the left there, you'll see templates, then special request. And then the other one was, I guess what I would kind of call it is data integrity of the item. So what was happening here was you could enter things, the supplier item ID was an open field. Some of the prompts showed all manufacturers and not just the manufacturers, for example, that were set up for the item. So we've got a couple of configuration options there that kind of can that help you be able to set these things up. So you can say, do I want to prevent special request entry? In which case it won't let you enter special requests here. And also there's another one that basically will let you, that'll set up so that when you go in and you do prompts, it's only going to show, say, suppliers or manufacturers for that specific item. And it's also going to make some fields display only so that I can't just go in and enter my own supplier item ID. But all those, when we deliver it, we're going to deliver it such that it acts as it does just now. But those are additional configuration options that you can set and thereby reducing some of the customizations that you guys have already done. Okay, next one, Chair. Oh yeah, so
we actually are kind of getting short on time, so
oh sure, yeah.
Just kind of focus on the ones that you haven't spoken on yet, and we can get to
sure,
the next
no
section.
problem. Yeah. Improvements to user experience, come along to Wednesday's session. You'll see more about that. We've talked about, I think we've talked about all the other ones actually. Yeah. So we can just move on. Yeah, just quickly, this one is work order and requisition. Basically, it's an existing feature where you can link work orders and requisitions using the pegging functionality. So we are providing that functionality. And then, yeah, just going through this, and I show you more about this on Wednesday, but just to quickly, you can see the cart, when you click on cart, the cart will slide out. You go to the checkout page. So on the checkout page, completely different. It's going to have the lines, it's going to have actions. If you click on the schedule details, then instead of having to click on schedule details and then click on accounting, you're going to be able to see all of the schedule and accounting information visible. You'll be able to move between the lines on the left-hand side, and you'll also be able to see the line details just by clicking on the tab. What I'll do is, again, on Wednesday session, I have a demo of this for you guys so you can see. And essentially what we're trying to do there is just reduce the number of clicks for you guys. Last one, we've kind of talked about a little bit, and I'll talk about more about this on Wednesday. But again, this is the guided search. It allows you to create advanced sort algorithms based on either attributes of the item and supplier or your own custom attributes, which kind of subtly guides your requesters to kind of the compliant items. Again, we'll talk a bit more on this on the Wednesday session.
And
all right, I think that's it.
You just have some really nice things to say about e-procurement. This is from a healthcare organization in New Jersey that we got some feedback on. So,
yep.
For the Bob, if there are questions, we'll have a transcript and we will answer those, and those will be in the appendix document. The answers to those questions, we'll put them in the appendix document that we post with this presentation. I just really want to, kind of get to financials and ESA ALM. So the recent deliverables that, that we mentioned, again, some from the idea space. And I think one of the big things was the reaction that we had to our healthcare customers asking for a better way to have lot availability and lot expiration visibility on the key inbound and outbound inventory transactions. And this came about when we were made aware that the vaccines were going to be available at near the end of 2020, and the healthcare customers needed that. So one of the things that we did was we put out some PRPs that enhance the visibility around the availability and visibility of the lot expiration. Some of the things that we did, I talked about earlier, was the change request to insert a user intervention to be able to edit the change request, and also to leverage the delegation framework. Some of the things that we have on the roadmap, especially in the supplier lifecycle management, and this was a biggie from our customers, was the ability to delete, remove obsolete registrations and change requests. So maybe somebody left the company, and they're not going to finish out their registration. It kept the organization from proceeding because once somebody had already started it. So we're going to clean that up. Conditional supplier registration questions. Before you even start the registration, an organization might want to qualify whether that bidder or supplier should even be registering. So they might ask a question and it has a specific answer, yes or no answer. And if they give the wrong answer, then they pop up a message that says, sorry, but thank you, but no thank you. In the inventory area, one of the things that we are thinking in the of being able to add additional user-defined fields when we talk to customers about the lot tracking visibility and expiration visibility, we found that the user-defined fields that we had implemented years and years and years ago were all used up. So we're adding some additional user-defined fields to the item in the item BU, and to be able to use those in Elasticsearch. The sessions of interest, Steve had mentioned some, Bob had mentioned some. So here are the sessions of interest that are coming up in the next 3 days. So please make a note and put them on your calendar and try to attend, because there'll be more information than what we've touched here about the session. I'm going to get into the financials update and roadmap and talk about things that are coming up for financials. So in the credit to cash area, the team has worked on quite a few things in credit to cash. And some of the things that we've done lately, I would say since our last Reconnect conference, is to provide correct accounting and to be able to correct the accounting information in billing before it actually starts processing. So mistakes can be made when entering accounting information on a bill, and sometimes these mistakes are discovered after the bill has been finalized. So we've provided, and again, this is one of those small things, the ability to identify and correct these errors ahead of time. So 39, we provided the, or 40, we provided the ability to correct the accounting errors up front and then go ahead and process the bill. The other one that we did in 41 is to provide a simple invoice request via Forms Builder. And there's a whole session going to be done on that, so I don't want to steal anybody's thunder on that. But really, this is for people that that maybe might need to create an invoice for something. They don't know tools. The invoice form is too much information. All they want to do maybe is build for their tutoring hours for a student. So they can create a simple invoice request using Forms Builder. And there's going to be a session on that later this week. So I wanted to mention that on Wednesday, there's a session that says, have customer invoices your way, PeopleSoft Forms and Approvals Builder. Same thing with payment plans. And trying to collect, we allow users to pay by check, by transfer, but by multiple different ways, but sometimes that just isn't workable. So again, this is the ability to set up something that's workable for an organization and without stealing anybody's thunder. The basically it is an installment type of plan that you can add, and there is going to be a whole session on this. So I urge you to attend that session, and it's on Thursday, and it's improved collection through PeopleSoft accounts receivable and payment plans. The next one that was done in 41 is expand invoice mass maintenance for additional elements. So we did the accounting, and in update in 41, we expanded the invoice mass maintenance capability to include things like accounting date, sales analyst, credit analyst, and more for users to do the update. So some of the credit to cash roadmap items, copy account the BU. So we'll follow the feature that's coming up in GL that we'll talk about in just a second. That is an extension of that feature. Copy, so we take a GL feature and we copy the GL business unit that also creates the associated subledger business unit. So for accounts receivable, accounts payable. AR refunds for a single payment voucher for this feature. We're planning to send customer refunds to payables with the request that if they encounter multiple credits, that they be assembled onto one payment or a single payment voucher. So this will help get the refund to the customer in a more timely manner when we consolidate, rather than having to have multiple payments to reconcile and handle. Validating other billing data before processing. We validated the accounting information, but now we're going to validate other pieces of information. For instance, the inactive credit analysts, collectors. When we do a copy bill, we don't validate that on that old bill that there might be a replacement analyst, credit analyst, or collector. So what we want to be able to do is to validate that information up front so that when we send that new bill, copied bill down the line, it has the most recent information, and it flows to AR with valid information as opposed to getting stuck in the process. The payment predictor to apply multiple payments. So matching incoming payments with invoices has been somewhat frustrating for companies. There's a restriction that allows only one payment to be applied one at a time for each payment predictor run. And this could cause frustration, and it's pretty tedious. So this is also open for errors. So for this enhancement, the team plans to further expand the payment predictor to process and apply multiple payments towards the same item within a single process run. And then similar to what we did for invoices through the payment plan, there's a plan to do payment plans or offer the payment plan option during the e-bill payment process. Accounts receivable, as the recent deliverables, we had the big one, I think, and I think this is what Amira is missing the most talking to you about, is the Match Exception Collaboration Center. And again, I don't want to steal anybody's thunder, but without going into too much detail, it's just to say this is something both users and strategy and development teams have been working on for quite a while, getting a lot of input from and collaboration from our customers, getting it just right. So there is a session scheduled for Tuesday. So check the agenda if you haven't already registered. It's welcome to the world of the Match Exceptions Collaboration Center. And I think you'll be very pleased with what the team is going to presenting. Enhance the payment request feature to validate a duplicate invoice number in PUM 41. What we did for that is seeking ways to streamline and increase the efficiency of submitting non-purchase order invoice for payments to check to see if there might have been a mistake on the invoice number. So let's say it came in via OCR and it interpreted a character in that invoice number incorrectly. So it wants to look at some of the things that just might be keying errors that might be causing a duplicate invoice, and showing that so that it could be reviewed and approved by someone in the organization, so to ensure that you're not getting duplicate invoices. The roadmap candidates for AP and e-settlements expand the fluid payment request for the back office. A few years ago, we converted the classic payment request to the fluid user interface so that a requester had a new user experience and could submit a payment request from any device. Well, that was great for the requester, but not so much for the back office user, who still had to use the classic version to do the review and do the review of these requests. So for this enhancement, we plan to now address with the fluid user interface the review roles, so that they too can do their review and approval with any device, anytime, anywhere. What we're planning to do for payment cards via the AP and financial gateway and the consumer credit card, business to business payment are still not as readily adopted as customer payments. So what we are going to try to do, and what we'd like to do, is to give the option to have organizations pay their suppliers with a credit card, like we would for procurement cards and use of expense cards. So we plan to make this payment methods to supplier easier with less overhead by leveraging the financial payment gateway, in addition with some collaboration set up and agreements with your supplier organizations who would be willing to accept card payments for AP. Expanding the Fluid Work Centers to add back the missing My Work links in the Fluid Work Center, and those were around matching. So you might notice that to be matched, match exceptions exist, match dispute, manually overridden things were missing from the Fluid Work Center, so those will be added back in. Preventing duplicate payments. Supplier payments are one of the company's largest annual disbursements, duplicate payments and other disbursement errors can be hidden and not detected and not for a while. So what we plan to do for this feature is to provide the capability to detect common duplicate situations, transposition of numbers, miskeyed or omitting key punctuation, such as hyphens or slashes, or trailing or leading zeros, and more. And then the last one, perform matching days based on lag days, is the match delay is an existing functionality. So the delay days is the number of days defined in the setup of the payables definition, and it's used for delaying invoice to be matched in the matching process. So the system can calculate now the match day based on the in the matching process. We're now going to be using the lag days to do that that particular calculation. So the match delay was only applicable for EDI, XML, and Excel upload invoice sources. And now with this new planned feature, the match days delay days will support online document management interface as well as the existing document methods, as well as the continue to follow the payables hierarchy. All right, for general ledger. So the general ledger recent deliverables we want to talk about, the heart of financials, and we have focused on expansions that deliver efficiency, such as the mass delete of journals, the ability to submit journals in bulk for approval, heightened security, visibility and history of denied journals, single rule and visibility into approval history on the reconciliation workbench, which I'll speak about in a moment. And one of the things we've done lately is to transform the financial close with PeopleSoft General Ledger. So at first, we had a focus on the effort to improve the period close. We then focused on providing efficiencies in the business process by providing incremental processing, multi-currency processing, as well as improvements to the year-end close. Next, we focused on a number of changes whose objective is to eliminate repetitive tasks during this critical period, like the mass journal delete and the fluid simple journal. Then we addressed your needs and your requests for more controls during the close process. And starting in image 37, the customers can leverage the journal source and security and use a cutoff schedule to effectively manage the activity being processed during the journal close and reduce the flux in the close process. And now our next focus provides for visibility and efficiency to management of the open period. And that's the planned enhancement. The approval chain, one of the recent deliverables was to view the approval chain from the reconciliation workbench. And you can see now in 40 the approvers that were in the approval chain and what the status is. Also, you can create a reconciliation rule within a reconciliation set that allows you to create reconciliation rules on the run control page to allow you to select the reconciliation set and the reconciliation rules within that set. And it could reduce the number of reconciliations created during the process and focus on the ones that you really do want to control. I want to give a shout out to the Pser Integration. The PeopleSoft General Ledger has an integration with the public sector compliance and regulation solution that is a cloud solution for public sector customers for permits, inspection, zoning, code enforcement, business licenses. And we do have an integration between that service and PeopleSoft General Ledger. Some of the things that the team has pointed out as General Ledger roadmap candidates is journal approvals for statistical activity. Allows the end user the capability of creating, running, and managing approval processes within the general ledger. It plans to deliver the ability to approve statistical journals via fluid approvals, an expansion that has been desired by our customers or requested by our customer. Kibana for this feature, Kibana Analytics for commitment control. We want to focus on delivering a budgetary dashboard for department owners to report and look at the actuals versus budget to manage their cumulative spend over budget. More efficient batch loads during the journal process. Finance is required to support financial statement certification. And what we want to do is provide the ability to efficiently leverage the attachments during the batch journal processing so that we can add a number of attachments instead of doing it one-on-one, add them as many as we need in one go, similar to what we're doing for strat sourcing. The spreadsheet upload expansion, what we plan to do with that, we plan to deliver controls on the template to ensure that users adhere to the maximum length of all the active, standard, and configured chart fields. So a validation that the length of the information in the fields and the upload is correct. And open period management, visualization, and match update. With this feature, we plan to deliver open period management, a new capability that will give customers visibility into their period close status by business unit via a hierarchical vantage point and take actions as needed to close the period and roll forward to the next period. So this is what it might look like. And here are the sessions for financials that are coming up in the coming week. And I urge you to go and get more information on each of these things that we just touched on briefly in the overview. For ESA and ALM, this is my product, so I can get very, very flabby about it, but I'm going to just concentrate on one of the features that we recently delivered, and that's the expenses employee digital assistant for a wallet entry and enhanced inquiries. Most of these have video feature overviews. So in the appendix document, I'll be linking the video feature overview so you can click on each of these things and see a recording about those new features. But when you're traveling, you kind of lose track sometimes for your out-of-pocket expenses for cash outlay of ground transportation, coffee, tea, meals, maybe tips, or you might use your personal credit card for business-related reimbursable charges. We think this Picasso digital assistant might help you with that. And what that is you can bring up the digital assistant and type in very, very simple sentence to tell this digital assistant what you outlaid that cash on. So I took an Uber for $40 in Dallas. So I type in, create me a wallet entry for $40 for my Uber in Dallas. And what it does is it creates a wallet entry in PeopleSoft for this entry, and it comes back and it shows me what it's done. And through a linkage that we've done behind the scenes and setup, we've said things like Uber, taxi, Lyft fall under the expense type of ground transportation. And if we go into the expense system and look at the wallet, we see the entry. It shows that it was created by Picasso. And in the description, it shows me fully what I entered in the conversation. So the roadmap candidates for expenses, some of the things that we're doing, tighter controls on receipts, meaning we're not letting you submit if the expense row requires a receipt and then you don't have a receipt, but neither do you have a reason for not having that receipt. So tighter controls, and those are going to be configurable by the organization. We're doing some GPS mileage calculation enhancement based on some of the changes that Oracle Locations is doing for their area. We are going to provide the ability to withdraw a travel authorization, which we missed in our travel authorization redesign. We are going to do a standard approval status page on all the travel and expenses documents. So on the expenses, you could see the approval chain. Well, we didn't have that on the travel auth. We didn't have it on the timesheet. And now we're adding that to those business documents. And then we want to provide more flexibility on how employees are reimbursed for their expenses. So right now it's at the at the highest level, and that means everybody gets reimbursed the same way. We're bringing it down to the employee level, so you could show how employees should be reimbursed individually. One of the things that we've done in projects and grants, we provided over the last few years quite a few intuitive and modern interface for managing customer contracts in Fluid, based on a configurable dynamic list of contract assigned to each end user. Your stakeholders have their unit of work specifically and the activity for the contracts assigned to them. The new favorite functionality allows you to see your most frequently used contracts at the top of the list. No more creating run controls manually. So all of these things that we have provided have been things that, again, small things that make a user's life easy, and things that came out of the idea space. So, and this was in image 36, and I had been talking about this. The new favorites functionality allows you to see your most frequently used contracts at the top of the list. So these are the features that that you'll see. No more run controls manually. Instead, use the related actions to process activity, all from a single user interface. No use of queries. Instead, use related information, like on this side of the page, for cost detail information from AP and expenses, along with recent billing and recent revenue recognition details. User preferences allow each individual to determine how their content should be displayed. You can hide entire sections of information, and we've included charts to provide some color and visual appeal, but those can be hidden too. And search criteria, we've included 15 fields to show, where we've chosen to show 6 here, where you can decide which ones are important for you. Joe, am I on the right slide here for you?
You're on the Kibana slide now.
Yeah.
Yep, there you go.
This is the contracts team delivered a customer contract focused dashboard to help customers manage their contracts portfolio. They can support operational reallocation of work by analyzing these contracts and at the administrator level, and reassign contracts from one administrator to another based on an unbalanced workload. Customers are able to support critical decisions by assessing which lines of business are growing and which are shrinking through visualizations that identify active contracts by BU, region, and type. And this is where we mentioned, that the analytics will help make some changes in business process and hopefully make some changes that are profitable for your organization. So the changes that we want to do are, some of the roadmap candidates we have are expanded use of Fluid Interface as a goal for transforming the maintenance of our contract, project, and award information. One of the things that we also are doing is excuse me. Joe, would you mind taking over for just a second?
Sure, Shar. This is the slide we're on now is the roadmap slide. So we've got a lot of exciting things planned to expand our use of the Fluid Interface, and some of that is with work centers, but other features too outside of work centers. We're also looking to create a new Fluid Work Center project costing that will do a lot of things for you to update your project and activity configurations across your organization that reduces a lot of navigation. It helps keep a lot of your information in sync. We're also working to create a new project request form with approvals that would then flow into completion of the project setup through a fluid activity guide. And the last item on the right is additional analytics in the project costing area that would be with Kibana and the Elasticsearch index information. Next slide. Sure, no problem, Shar. So this is, and we're going to have a session on the ESA. I think there's a slide here in a moment that will show you the exact day and time. It's just a little preview of what the Work Center will include. Again, futures, we're working on it now. Some exceptions, looking for missing or invalid information, things like missing project managers, the user fields, the project and activity user fields that need to be updated, and also looking for exceptions between project status and project end date as well. Next slide. There you go. One more.
One more?
This is good right here, Shar. This is the project update wizard that we're working on. This is a 4-step train stop that would allow you to update multiple pieces of information much more quickly and efficiently than you had done in Classic. So things that we can update here are the end dates, as you can see, the user fields, the project type, project location, project manager information, project team. And it really walks you through a nice interface for doing that. Allows you to review the information before completing the update and then submitting it as well. Submitting and seeing a confirmation of what was updated to with all the applicable validations that we have currently through the Classic interface. Next slide. Okay.
Thanks.
Hi, I'll take it from here, Shar.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Loida, and I'm here to cover the Asset Lifecycle Management recent deliverables and talk a little bit about roadmap. We are approaching the end of our time, so I'm going to go through this a little bit quickly, but remember that we have a session for each of the individual products for Asset Lifecycle Management, as well as an AM roundtables on Thursday. So as you can see here with all of the light bulbs, which indicate that these are ideas from the idea space, the Asset Lifecycle Management Roadmap has been and will continue to be a customer-driven roadmap with strategic initiatives mixed in. Next slide, please. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of those features that we've delivered. And this first one we're going to touch on is the Spreadsheet Asset Data Import. This started out as a very simple way of adding asset data to provide asset addition and retirement transactions. That's all. And customer adoption has exceeded expectations. So we continue to enhance this feature. So in 36, we added spreadsheet import approvals. And in 37, we added new templates, chart field transfers, cost adjustments by amount, and we are planning additional features based on your feedback. The more near-term one is a retirement convention inheritance from the asset profile. So if you don't know what it is, we're going to allow that to default from the asset profile. Next slide, please. And here's a quote, just in keep, oh, you want to keep going? Okay, good. So we'll keep going. So here's a feature here, came from customers because there were just so many different ways of tracking assets and identifying assets that were acquired using external funding sources, whether it's federal, state, private, whatever it may be. And so this feature that was delivered in 39, what it does is that it creates a common UI and data model for identifying externally funded assets and sponsors. And what this helps to do is to identify these assets to avoid those hefty fines that could be part of the sponsor requirements. Next slide. Okay, so this slide and the next one cover lease administration. There's a session on Thursday, well, we'll cover these features in more low-level detail. But just so you know, in 38, one of the features that was delivered has to do with the decrease in lease scope. What does that mean? We have a lease agreement for 5 automobiles, and something happens with one of the automobiles, we don't need it. So we have this sense of a partial retirement, a change in a reduction in quantity or an area, like as square footage. So what this feature allows us to do is, through an amendment type, record that decrease in lease scope. Next slide, please. The other feature we'll cover on Thursday in the lease administration session, but it's good for all of you to know that we have this, is that in 38, we also introduced new functionality that streamlines the currency exchange gain-loss calculations for payables leases. And this includes the accounting of the gain-loss that's associated with lease payments and lease modifications. So we do have some additional information available on My Oracle Support. The FAQ document that many of you have probably become very familiar with has been updated, as well as a new technical brief that covers this feature in detail. Next slide, please. All right, so Elasticsearch. This is something we are very accustomed to with asset management, and this was introduced in 36 for maintenance management, and it transforms how we search for work orders that are associated and the associated assets, and we return the expected and discover the unexpected by using the search. Next slide. And then in 40, we are so excited to be able to release a Kibana, well, 2 Kibana dashboards for maintenance management. We'll cover this in a lot more detail on tomorrow's maintenance management session. But this allows us to look at labor assignments, including unassigned work order tasks, as well as work order asset maintenance history. So we're looking at schedule versus actual hours, unassigned tasks, overdue PMs, top 5 problem codes by asset types. So join us tomorrow for more details about what those 2 dashboards include. And now here we are with some roadmap items. So each of these items cross the 3 products of asset lifecycle management. We have individual slides on our individual product sessions, but fluid work order time entry. This is huge. There's so many different ways of capturing time entry, and this would consolidate it all into a fluid user experience. We heard from you last time we met together for the Envision conference earlier this year. Fluid Asset Management Work Center. That was a hot topic. And guess what? You spoke up, we listened, and it's now on the roadmap. So we're excited to include that. Asset financial metrics using Kibana. So how do we use Kibana to help us understand our asset data better? Enhanced lease payment accounting inquiry. If we are catching up prior periods in the current period, how do we know which obligation and interest combination goes with which period? So this is an inquiry that just to help with reporting, as well as the enhanced lease clause data capture. So again, just to extend what we already have to be able to account for our leases and be able to administer more precisely. And Shar, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you. That was very quick, but we're low on time.
Thank you. Here are the ESA ALM sessions of interest that Loida and Joe mentioned in their sessions, in their coverage. So please make a point of attending to get more detail. And I just really want to kind of fly through these items to say that we are looking ahead and we are looking at things in the emerging market, in the emerging tech market of adding chatbot. We have some plans, some additional ones planned for the supplier, and that's a credentialed user. And if you come to our lounge, we can give you an advanced peek of that, and we can demo some of the other ones. One of the things that I'm going to skip through this because I want to get through the page and field configurator to call that out. one of the things that we heard loud and clear from customers is that they had customizations that they really would like to get rid of, and we feel that the page and field configurator and the the ability to use the page and field configurator and its core capabilities to help with eliminating customizations is very important. And the team has made some, the team, I say team, but the group and the information coming in from customers is that we needed to really kind of enhance it and give it more strength. And indeed, we've done that in the in 2021 by adding some, extending criteria to additional fields. We're going to be using it in an upcoming image to track changes to business documents. So there's some exciting things planned, and there are 2 sessions, one for advanced beginning users of Page and Field Configurator, and one for advanced users of Page and Field Configurator coming up this week. We are some of the questions that we get, are you thinking about artificial intelligence and machine learning? And definitely we are. The leader on this is our financials group, looking at a POC or concept project for maximizing collections. And they're doing a POC on that, and depending on, in conjunction with data sciences. And depending on how that one turns out, we'll be following on with some ideas that we have in supplier relationship management, and definitely in ESA for projects and ALM for assets. So look to our planned features and enhancements to see where we're going and what we're thinking about AI ML. These are the sessions that are coming up that for Page and Field Configurator for beginners, managing ERP run controls, and Page and Field Configurator for advanced use. I'm sorry to blow through this last group of slides, but in the appendix, you'll have all of the material as well as useful links to the information, especially those areas that we didn't cover in detail. So check the session posting for that. And with that, I'll shut down if we haven't already. Bob, any comments? Anything come through on the chat? I think we're going to get cut off in a few minutes.
Yeah, I think we're caught up, at least responded, either help us join one of the lounges that we have to re-ask those questions, or we responded with an answer. So hopefully we're all caught up. If not, I apologize for missing something, but hopefully we'll get those questions answered this week during one of our lounges or additional sessions.
Yeah. We get the transcript of the chat so that we can put, we can reformat it and then put the answers in it and then post it along with our appendix document.
Yeah.
So have no fear.
All right.
Well, thank you everyone for attending. Sorry about the interruption, and thanks everyone for and come and visit us in the lounges, please.